Hello, everyone. Welcome to the last transmission. How are you doing, Paul?
I'm okay, thanks. Been dashing about a bit today, but better now. We can sit down for a couple of hours and just kick a few ideas about with the amazing people in the chat and yourself. And you've been busy?
I'm always busy, as you know, like yourself. But it was nice to have a nice bank holiday, wasn't it? You know, just chill out. I went to a barbecue, had a few drinks, which I said I wouldn't do, but there you go. But you do need that relaxation time, and you definitely need it.
Well, yeah. Hey, I've just had a plumber here, and I've got to have boiler fixed next. So the parts of almost 300 quid. So I'm really chuffed about that. But it's not Plum City, is it? We've got to talk about Unexplained, haven't we? So we got in chat. We're going on for 100 people. So thanks for support every week, guys. Dragon's Maiden Shield. I've not seen that name in before. Hi, Dragonborn. Dragonborn must be in because I don't see a name, but we've got Mike Disabled Welshman, Mag Sue, Liam, Ian Linney. Good to see you, Ian. And Mrs. Linney may be in. Mia Girl, Tino. Let's have a look. Tom Waters. Good to see you, Tom. It's good to see everybody, by the way. But these are people that I've met on Clifftops, so I know face to face. Zero Dawn, Lee, Rivington Pike. Lorraine's moderating for us, so thank you, Lorraine. Steve Collin, and I'm sure there's going to be loads more, but apologies for not getting your name out there. And
yeah,
go on.
I was going to say, I should say that thank you to everybody for subscribing, and whatever we're doing is working, because we've reached over 10k subscribers, which is really good, considering that we haven't really been putting any content out, properly like we should have been.
Slow. It's been slow for Truth Proof to put content out. I've just not been able to get out and do as much, but I've got quite a few kind of cooking, so there'll be some going out shortly. I think you've got one ready to go, nearly, haven't you?
Yeah, and I think you and I are going to do more of these StreamYard chats as well, which will be we'll make sure that they're really interesting, because we can pull up any of the hundreds and hundreds of cases that you've not even talked about yet, probably.
But cases, I keep getting them in all the time, and apologies if you're watching this and you think, well, I sent him something and he's never even spoke about it, because I've got folders of cases, and they're so valid. At wall at back of me here, well, when I'm saying at back of me, when I'm pointing in front of me, the wall in front of me here, there's literally pages and pages of different types: cube sightings, UFO sightings, the fear projection sightings. And the fear, I tell it every time, it just intrigues me where that comes from. I think it's a phenomena all on its own. I just think people think it goes hand in hand with a certain type of sighting, but it's an element that I think that it's not worked on enough. But
well, talking about sightings, Paul, look at the interest we have had. Thanks to Andy Rawlins for doing that last video with us. The amount of just witnesses in the comments, and I think there's over 500 comments on that video now, 80,000 views, just talking about their own sightings. And so it just goes to show you, doesn't it, that speaking out is well worth it.
Well, yeah, and I think what they got from Andy, they realised what they got was honesty. Do you know what I mean? I mean, all right, we've put the banner up, werewolf stakeout, because essentially that's what it was. But Andy's being honest; they didn't see anything, and that's what you get with Andy. I mean, you know Andy, I know him, and he's not going to embellish anything to try and make it better for himself or for anybody. I mean, originally he contacted me because of the Tilbridge Lane incident, as I said the other week, and he said, unbelievably, we're coming from a job where we'd just been he didn't say stakeout. I don't want to say that. I don't know what his words were for it, but where they'd been doing observations for a suspected werewolf of all things. Well, that's a thing. Then I'll ask you, and because you've made the incredible film Elusive and been involved in the subject of cryptids, and let's throw this to you guys in chat. What do you think the cryptids are? And let's make that a broad brush kind of thing. Let's talk about the dogman, the werewolf, the Sasquatch, Bigfoot, whatever you want to call it. Big letters, please, in chat, capitals. What are they? Are they something that's flesh and blood and living and breathing? Are they flesh and blood when they're here? Are they living below ground? What are they? Are they occupants of spaceships? Some people think they are. I personally think that's crazy, but that's only my view. I could be way off beam. What do you think they are?
Well, it's interesting. I mean, we say it's crazy, but we also both know that Bigfoot have been seen on the craft. We know for a fact. I've spoke to witnesses myself that have seen them on the craft. And also, I thought Daryl Denton's view on it, and the fact one of them told him that they were from the stars, whatever that means. Now, of course, you've got there's always a flip side to this, but ultimately, we can never. Same with your experiences, Paul. We weren't there.
No,
Daryl. We weren't with Daryl when that happened, and we weren't on that craft when they seen him. But it's really interesting.
And we've got their product of my labs.
Yeah, I mean that to me, when we talk about these things, what's interesting is that you tend to, and look, I know we've asked what cryptids are. I'll tell you what gets me. How do flying cryptids fit into this equation? Because
you mean like the Mothman or the dragon type?
Yeah, the Mothman. Because yes, you can sort of upright hominids like a Bigfoot, Sasquatch, Yeti. We can kind of explain their existence to somewhat, if you know what I mean. We can even say there are very, very remote parts of the world where they live, and there's a lot of researchers out there that still stick to that. However, where the hell does Mothman come in?
It's crazy, and do you know? Because parallel Mothman slightly, and I need to get the report out to do it in detail. But there's a guy contacted me who lived in Jersey a few years ago. And this isn't Mothman, but he was sat in his apartment that had a balcony one evening. And I think his wife were in with him as well, but he sat looking out of the balcony and he saw this thing in the distance come up, lift up out of the ground and sort of go in the crucifix position, and they were wings. And it stayed there for several seconds. And he's transfixed. It just come up between trees. Got the full report, a great report, and spoke to the guy. We've had conversations. I always like to speak to somebody. It don't mean they're telling you the truth, but you gauge what they're about. Because when you get into a conversation, if you're reading an email or something they've sent you, you've got one report. But if you get into a conversation and somebody's literally sees a cryptid every week, then you think, hold on a minute, but this guy, that's his only sighting. He says, and with a flap of its wings, it was next to the balcony, and then it's kind of paused again, and then it had gone. And he said it had a face like a parrot, but it was huge, it had great big eyes. He said that sent to look into his soul. We can do it in detail because there's a lot more to it. And he said that it's because its wings look like leather, not feathers. And it had fur on its body, and he likened it to a dirty polar bear. He says, have you ever seen them when they look like a yellowy, light brown colour? I don't know. I suppose when sea ice when they're actually on land, and it's like sheep. They're never white. People think of them as fluffy white clouds, but they're not. They're just they're dirty. Do you know what I mean? Yeah. So that's a cryptid that I've never heard a description of before on a little island like Jersey. Came out with this incredible story. And I'll never forget him because I sent him all truth proof books and they got lost in transit, and it cost me again. I had to send them again. So there.
Yeah, well, I mean, it's a strange one, because that almost sounds like, I think someone's just put in the top there, I think they are conjured. Like Steve's saying that they're conjured, and it does remind me, that sort of feels like some sort of conjured archetypal guardian type thing, doesn't it?
Well, Dragonborn said also, didn't she? It's gone now, but no need to put it back up. We know what she said. Not from this planet, and it makes you wonder, doesn't it? Are they conjured? I thought that as we were talking earlier, and I don't know what you guys think. We talk about coincidence, don't we? We know we can't create a friend, and we've never thought about so-and-so for years and years, and here he is walking around corner. We haven't created that, but it makes you wonder if we're shaping the phenomena in some way with the things that we're seeing. We had a rash on the cliff tops a few months ago where people were seeing like the dark outline, the shape. Carl Dan's there. Carl saw it. Carl was on the cliff tops. How apt, but Carl saw it. He were up there with his wife, Sarah, and he told us what he'd seen. And Carl doesn't live in the area. He just comes infrequently and comes and stays in area and comes up to cliff tops. It's great to meet up with him. I think he's coming next week, actually. But lots of people had seen it. And then when I talked to Andy Barmby about 2 weeks ago, when we had to walk to Speeton to look at that submarine, he'd been watching Truth Proof, and he'd been watching Last Transmission, and he said, that what you're talking about, that shadow type figure on cliff tops. He said, I've been fishing on 40 to 50 years, these cliff tops. He says, and we've all seen it. So we're not reporting anything new. It's that what they call the ghost of big railings. And in fact, I think in the short that we're going to be putting out, he's saying as much, isn't he?
Yeah.
So it's interesting that this phenomena, whatever it is, has been around a long time. We're up there, I'm up there, Pete, Linny. I know Bob Brown's on about coming back up. Now he's sort of feeling a bit fitter, but there's a small group of us get up there on a night. We'll go for months and months without seeing anything. And then you suddenly get this glut of this dark shape walking up along the cliff tops, do a double take, and there's nothing there. Are we creating it? Is it? I don't know. I mean, it might be too far-fetched to even say, but is it that one person sees it and it's not a collective memory? We're not imagining it. You're definitely seeing it. Sometimes two people are seeing it. I use the example of Sarah, my eldest daughter, who went up to see Philip Kinsella when I was there, because she met Philip at conferences and whatever, and she wanted to meet up with him, and they both saw it. They both erupted into the same verbal. Did you see it? And Philip knew nothing about it. But now it's stopped. It's weird.
Well, I mean, I wonder if you could try some sort of experiment with that. Somehow, I don't know how you would do it, but if you did some sort of something random where you pulled something out of a hat, each of you, I don't know. Do you know what I mean by that? Something.
What do you mean? And concentrate on a certain thing and see if you can evoke something. What do you guys in chat think? Do you think that's too far fetched? I'm not saying it is, by the way, but it's
similar to
what
ideas.
Yeah, yeah. What ideas do you have, or what do you do if you want to connect with the unknown? And I'm sure. Let's have a look. We've well over 100 people in chat, so I'm sure you guys have definitely got some ideas on this. But have we got any questions or replies back to what you think the cryptids are? I think Dragonborn said not of this earth, but is there anything else there?
Not at the moment, I don't think, but it's a difficult one because I think, isn't it funny that the occult has come back round in mainstream ufology now? They're really now it's coming out in all these redacted documents. It's coming out in all these secret programs that they're using occultism.
Yeah.
So, and alchemy even. I mean, you could say science is the new alchemy, if you like, but I still think there's more to true alchemy than we're led to believe. So the idea that occultism and conjuring and rituals are part of ufology and making contact with whatever it is they're making contact with, is that part of it? We know that they've been seen since recorded time. You've said it before. They've said throughout history these things are seen and they vary. But why? My point is, why is it the Bigfoot, Sasquatch, Dogman thing? Why? Like we've said it before, and why not unicorns?
But the thing is, Chris, as you make a good point. I suppose in years gone by in folklore, I know that people used to bring the big, was it like an ivory horn back from the narwhal, the whale, the mammal? And claim that they'd seen unicorns, so that you get charlatans out there. But is that where that myth began, or did people actually think that they were seeing unicorns? Are we creating the modern day folklore now? People in chat, you, me, by what we're describing and what we're seeing? Or are we just dressing up what's been seen for hundreds, if not thousands of years with new terminology? It's strange, isn't it, that the 1950s and 60s, people saw flying saucers and the little glass dome on the top. And, the perceived little being in giving it this. And we don't seem to be seeing that now, do we? Yeah, does that mean those people were lying? Is there something so advanced within this? I don't know. This what we're looking into. I haven't even got a word for it. That it's actually shaping what we want to see, or what as we're advancing, it's giving us what it thinks we need to see. I don't know. The explanations for UFOs that have sort of all changed. Yeah,
the Men in Black's a funny one, isn't it? The Men in Black, but in relation to what you see, because they're often accounts with Men in Black where they will portray themselves dressed in a particular manner, driving a particular car, saying a certain thing. And a lot of the time, and even the ETs do this, they'll present themselves in something from a completely different generation.
Yeah.
And then sometimes you'll see it flicker to a newer version.
Mm.
But it's almost it is almost like it is presenting what, like you said, like what it's at times it presents itself to what in ways in which we think or it thinks we will be comfortable with, or I don't even know whether comfortable is the right word, whether we will be more inclined to interact or resist less might be a better way of putting it.
Mm. Yeah, Dragonborn, what he's seeing is just evolving to my mind. And, you know, it could be evolving to our thought process, Dragonborn, and the way that it thinks humankind wants, the direction it wants to take it. Just while it's on my mind, when there was a lot happening up and around Staxton Wold, and I'm not saying it's not happening now, but I used to travel up there quite a bit. And one of the farmers, I'd spoke about it years ago, probably on Truth Proof years ago, and he had cameras in every room of his home, the ones that looked out onto the open countryside, and they were on cams, and he's filming all this UFO footage. And he rang me one day. He said something strange has happened. Well, he lived close to the top of what's called Staxton Brow, and it's a fast bit of road, and then you go down this steep hill. It's a 500-foot up incline. He says a car parked just back of the brow, but looking at my house. They never park on verge. And he said it was a black car. No, I don't think it was American or anything. Someone tells me it was a VW. He said, but I've got my binoculars and I'm looking, and there's a woman inside the car, and she's got her head down, but he's got his binoculars and she's not miles away. He says, and I can see that she's actually looking up at me. I can see her looking up, and she's observing the property. So that kind of unnerved him and his wife. They're retired. And then his property, let's assume we've got this piece of paper. He has a window there, and he has another window at the top, and it's all part of the kitchen. He said, and the next thing, he says, not that day, this black car's come up the side of my property. Now, you can't just go past his property and out the other side. You've got to turn around and go the same way you come in. It's a private road. He says, now, I watched it past that window, and I went to that other window to look at the car and watch it pass, and it never did. He said it just never passed. And, you know, this is a substantial property. He said it couldn't turn around. Well, I know, because I've parked there. You can't turn around on that little bit of road. You've got to go round and turn and then go back out. Strange, almost as though it didn't exist. Now, is that something that's been planted in his mind? Is he imagining it? You know, I don't know. Is he having some kind of episode? I wouldn't think so, because I've said it many times. If this is the guy that Richard D. Hall came to East Yorkshire it was North Yorkshire when we go to Staxton to film and do a documentary on, because he'd got more UFO footage, which he still probably has, than anybody I know. Just literally banks and banks of this stuff that he's filmed over years. And when he came, he wouldn't do it. He just backed out. He was a bit too nervous. Nice guy, and he rang me. So I've said it many times. I were in Danes Dyke as usual with my little dog. So I literally just jumped in my works van and drove through, and I did that short documentary with Richard D. Hall on the spot that day, and over a few days. And but that guy up there is still there as far as I know, and he's still documenting it. But
yeah,
we know we rambled a bit. The car, where did it go? I've no reason to believe he's lying. Nobody else knows about it, only me. So he's not done it for any reason or said it. Do you know what I mean? It's not gained him anything.
I think they clearly can. Well, we know they can. They can. They're the masters of manipulation, so they can certainly manipulate what you're seeing and what you even your thoughts. They definitely can do that, because I think that's happening to us all on a daily basis from somewhere. I tell you, in fact, I don't even know why this. I mean, this is interesting. This dimming the sun thing. I mean, again, we've got to be careful not to go down these roads, because I think the live stream we did the other week got hindered somewhat. I don't know whether it was a really good live stream, and it was just hindered on the numbers were hindered for some reason, and I think it's because we were chatting about some things that we deem okay to chat about. There's obviously something in what we're saying sometimes that touches a nerve for some reason, or it could well just be the bot getting a bit giddy,
Okay,
because that can happen ultimately.
So I don't know. Have we any more questions on the origins of the cryptids? I don't know. And I don't suppose any of us know for sure. Only the ones that have seen and experienced know that it's real, but we just got to define the real. Bob, didn't the Simpsons?
Well, if it's happening now, they most likely did, because they seem to be way ahead on everything else, don't they?
So what's Lynn is saying, Paul, I don't think we need to bring that shadow thing forward at all. I've been trying to push it back at times. Sentinel springs to mind. It's true, whatever it was. We've had a period up there where it's definitely been coming back with us something, and more so for Ian, more so for Pete, but not as much for me. I've got to admit, and I don't know why. And a few other people. Yeah, Mark, prime example, who comes up. I don't think Mark comes in chats, but he's been experiencing things, and I don't think it's wistful thinking it's something to do with the hitchhiker effect. And I think it's a great word to think, sort of representation of what's happening. I don't think it necessarily attaches itself to a person. I think we just think about it and we can connect with it. But there's been things happening, such as phone calls, and people have been hearing voices when they've been talking to me on the phone and asking me they can hear another voice. I can't hear it. I'm not saying that's anything to do with the cliffs, but I think you've heard it as well.
I've heard it lots of times.
Yeah, Ian's heard it. But the reason I'm on about the phone, the day that there'd been a bit of activity up there, and I'm talking to Ian on the phone, and Ian's wife, Elaine, suddenly shouted, the television just turned itself on in other room. And just weird things. And we know electrical things, things do have little glitches from time to time, but there's lots more examples. I mean, we're just touching on things tonight, aren't we? But
so are you wary now, like in terms of experimentation up there, because we're hoping to do some more filming, aren't we, including some of these experiments that we're thinking about doing?
I'm wary in that, and I think, excuse me, I'm wary in that I'm not interested in connecting with the darker side of this, because I think it's there. Some places just exhibit and give off a bad vibe. In the daytime, it's teeming with people looking at these incredible bird colonies, the gannets and the puffins and everything else. But it takes on a different persona at night. It really does. And I suppose it's hard for people to imagine on a summer's day when they're walking along them cliff tops, but it really does. And we visit loads of places, not just there. And that it has a distinct vibe to it when we keep going, because we know the potential for things to happen do take place there. But there's an element to it that just gives you a bit of a shiver. There's something off. Do you know what I mean? And it's a trickster. Whatever it is, it's a trickster. I mean, this isn't me saying it. This were Ian and this were Pete, I think, a few days ago. When it touches you, because it does, you get pushed. And it's always from behind. There's loads of people felt it. We don't come on up and say, oh, you're going to get pushed tonight. We don't say anything. Somebody comes up and they'll say, oh, someone just pushed me in the shoulder. But it's always from behind. It's never anything from the front. It's almost like jumping to Hummonby. All of the things that were happening at Hummonby in 1996, 7 and 8, everything were on the peripheral, or everything took them by surprise. It's almost like it wants your attention, but it doesn't want you to know the hows or the whys. It's tricksterish. It's really, sometimes it's quite sinister.
It's funny because if you look at somewhere that I would say Bempton mirrors some of its manifestations, like Skinwalker. I just use that as an example because everybody knows it. Isn't it funny? They're continuing to just prod this thing. I know it's a TV show, but we know for a fact that that's what they're doing. But even when the TV show's not filming, that's what's happening there. And it's the same with neighbouring ranches. Some researchers are doing the same thing. It's not that
they want to react.
They just want a reaction. They're not looking for a dark side of it, but it appears that even when people weren't looking for a dark side to the phenomena, people like what's the guy that were funding it originally? Bigelow. He had a terrible time, allegedly, just from trying to prompt a reaction. So, yeah, I think you're right to be cautious, but it is I know what you mean. This phenomenon, it's addictive, isn't it? And it almost seems to know that it is.
It is. We'll stand up there, and I can only use that location because that's where we're spending a lot of time at the moment as an example. Like an example last night, and we're saying there's nothing happened, has there? And Mark came up. He usually comes up an hour and a half after we've been there. Anybody saying, "Oh, what's happened?" No, and like saying, it's been quiet, and it's been quiet for, a month or so, and and it has, and then all of a sudden it'll start to tick again, and it's almost like a poltergeist phenomena where you perceive it on the peripheral of your awareness, and as you become more aware, it grows in boldness, but it doesn't want to confront you. If it does anything, to me, it's always by surprise, that's a little bit sinister and a little bit tricksy, isn't it? But you know what I mean? It's I bet a bulk of the people in chat and the people listening to this afterwards, I bet your experiences for the most part didn't come about by CE5 or some form of meditation, although you may have had them. I'm not downplaying that, but I bet a lot of people, it's just totally smacked them straight between eyes, something they never expected. And that's what's put you on the path that you're on today.
Yeah, I mean, Lenny's just said there, it's always towards the cliff from behind. Do you think that's because it is this shadow being that's doing it? And if it was to come in front, then you would clearly see it.
It could be, but Gemma, my daughter, who lives in, well, not so where she lives. She don't live around here anymore anyway, but she came to visit us. I said this a few months ago, and her partner Darren knows nothing of this and he's not interested whatsoever. But he came up onto the cliffs because Gemma wanted to come up. Gemma had that experience, if you remember, with Bob Brown, where they saw that white square on hillside, and she saw that, and it's just kind of intrigued her. And I know I'm repeating myself, guys, but as we were pulling away in car and Jeremy was still in his car behind us, so I stopped car. She says, "Darren, tell me, Dad, what you saw on cliff tops," because he'd told her while they were up there. And he goes, I looked, he says, and I saw a black figure walking along the cliff. He says, and I said, "Gemma, put the torch on." And when she put it on, there's nobody there. We're not talking 200 yards away. We're talking 50, 60 feet away, and it's open. You can't go anywhere. So he'd seen it. We stopped car, and I told Jeremy, because I like it to come from the horse's mouth. Do you know what I mean? Rather than me relate to him next week. Just think, I don't know. You're just always trying to add that little bit of extra proof. And that's all we can do. Question. What's this?
Lee Roscoe, when Lenny sees the shadow, strange things at the cliff tops, what is he thinking about?
Yeah, he'll have to answer that one. But I tell you what, we obviously we're not always serious, and we have a good laugh up there. We really do, because I can be as sarcastic as the next person. And we've noticed things with EMF meters, and we'll put the EMF meters well away from anything electrical. And then sometimes I'll put them in the field, and all you'll see is the lights. And I'll put them a good distance away, 200 feet away, and I'll put them on a monopod. And they're in the field. Yeah. You start talking about anything that's got some dark humor to it, and they go off. We've all noticed it. We've all noticed it. And they go, "Hey, look what we're talking about." And they look at it's doing it, and it's weird. But let's just do this then. Hi, Deb. Hi, Paul and Chris. Have you tried it's his method on the cliffs? We're going to start using it. And no, we haven't, Deb. But I know you came up here, up to the cliffs. I think, was it last year or year before? Last year. So, if you come up, perhaps we could try that. I'm sort of game for anything. Let's have a go.
What is that Estes method? I've heard of that.
Stop asking me. That's why. Tell us more, Deb.
I think is that the one that Trey Hudson were using in the meadow, where one of you got limited senses, and they listen to the, what do they call it? The
ghost box, is it? Or...
Yeah, the ghost box, and someone's asking questions in a different location entirely. I think that's how they do it.
It may be, Chris. It may be. I'm not sure I have a lot of faith in the ghost box. It almost seems to be throwing out random things, and it's a bit like. And please forgive me if you think I'm having a dig at spiritualism. I'm not, because I think there's some brilliant people out there who do pick up on things. But it's a bit like the ghost box. If you throw loads of things out, somebody there's going to relate. Oh, I know somebody called Dave. Oh, it's got to be for me. Do you know what I mean? And it's
yeah, but these are the special certain questions that
yeah. Well, she's
require
put it in using headphones and a spirit box.
using
Thanks,
headphones
Kev.
in the spirit box. Yeah, it's
Yeah.
interesting. I watching when we were watching Trey Hudson do it on that documentary that he made. It's just one of a few interesting experiments that you can do up there.
Well, you know, I think Bob Brown, I'm sure he's got a spirit box. I'm absolutely certain of it. I'll nip up and have a word with him because he's on about coming back up there, you know, if he's feeling well enough. So that would be good. And what's Karen Behrman? I wonder how varied phenomena have evolved for the good or negative. Power of manipulation. Do you think it's that's interesting thought, that, Karen? Do you think power of manipulation, or is it power of the mood of the people and the people involved? That's probably where you're going with it anyway. But I suppose if we go into something with good intent, experimenting, then do we get a positive outcome? And if the same experiment were conducted and we go into it with dark intent and negative vibes, thinking, "Oh Christ, this is going to happen. This potentially could happen," are we almost getting what we wish for? In which case, is it the same phenomena, just interacting and don't even realize what's good or bad? In some instances, I don't know.
Yeah, it's a weird one. I mean, interesting. I don't know. Is Karen talking about the way that it's evolving? It's, you know, is it evolving? I know, like, obviously Nathaniel thinks that some of this phenomena evolves, you know, in order for working around us. Its evolution is based on the way we think and perceive it. But I wonder if, you know, as you said before, we can't be the be all and end all. There's got to be other, you know, variables at play here. There has to be. I mean, for example, let's just get this cryptid question out of the way. Yeah. Harry Poppins. Have either of you encountered a cryptid? If so, I've never encountered a cryptid, and it's not for one to trying, is it?
No. I used to, when I do Truth Proof, there's a poster up there that shows the cover of my book, The Night People, which I've no need to show you today, but I would like to mention the books before we finish, if possible. However, so I've seen something alien in nature, but not cryptids. But I've spoken to enough people, absolutely incredible witnesses, just like Chris has, very, very genuine, down-to-earth people, and seen visceral reaction retelling these stories has on them, as in reducing some people to tears, fear. Do you know what I mean? Very rarely does it induce elation and like, oh, I can't wait to see it again. So I've no doubt about the reality of these things. I mean, Les, when we made Wolflands, I mean, Les has come to this, and no disrespect, Les will probably be listening to this, and I've been speaking to him today, checking everything's okay. But Les came into this subject, and he didn't really have an avid interest in UFOs and the unexplained or cryptids. He was interested in ghosts, no doubt about that. But his interest has grown whilst working with me and working with Truth Proof. And I think he's come away thinking that there is a very real reality to the subject of the cryptids after making Wolflands and talking to them incredible witnesses.
It's so strange, the cryptid thing. It really is just really odd. There's an interesting comment here. I'm going to put this one up.
Okay.
Lorraine. Oh, hang on. Just put something else up. Paul, to answer Lee, I have seen it many times regarding the shadow being, and I think sometimes it's trying to get close to one or more of us, but it goes when I thought, that's interesting. It seems to go when you become aware of it.
Yeah, in a way, Ian, it's what we've been saying then, isn't it? Because everything it's doing is either on the peripheral, it's doing it from behind, it's a sneaky thing. It doesn't want to confront, it doesn't want to face you, it wants the upper hand all of the time. And I suppose that goes hand in hand with lots and lots of these type of things. Is this the comment you want to put up?
Yeah, this is it's Rick, he's the guy that's had some 2 amazing sightings up at Winter Hill, and it looks like Roundloaf in Anglesark is not far from Winter Hill at all. Right. It's a couple of miles, if that. And he's saying he got sleep paralysis after trying Spirit Box on Roundloaf, which is meant to be an old burial mound.
Okay.
So, you know, it's one of them, isn't it? It's frightening, isn't it? But how do you test that? So it happens once, you've no choice but try it again, Rick.
Well, you know, we've got I'm gonna just tell this little story again. We've got going on for 150 people in chat, and I realise that a lot of you guys will have been in the Truth Proof, and we do appreciate it. Ah, bloody hell, Ken Wilkinson, thank you very much, Ken. That's so kind of you, mate. And great guy, Ken, been on Cliff Tops with us as well.
Wow, thanks so much, mate. I really appreciate that. And we really have to meet up next time you're on the cliffs. I have to come and meet you.
Oh, absolutely, yeah. And
thank you for that, mate. Really appreciate it. Thank
man. What were I going to say then? I've lost. Oh no.
Also, sorry, mate, just to put in, and Nuki Brown as well. Thank you. Thanks to you as well, mate.
Everything and nothing is appreciated. I appreciate just having all this support in chat. And if you've not pressed the like and subscribe, at least do one of them. It's right again. Yeah, just do it now. It's easy. Thank you. Let's have a look. Let's have a think. Yeah, I spoke about it the other day, and this definitely happened. And I went to sleep because I'd had that back injury. I've been sleeping in the spare room. Little dog sleeps in the room on a blanket. Don't get on. Well, he just wakes me up on a morning actually, and you can feel him. But I'd gone to bed. Mary had gone into other room, and there's an alarm in our room that just rings a buzzer to the outbuildings. If anybody got in, it would. I'm telling people this, but there's no tin there to take any road, so it don't matter. But it'll just sound and it'll ring a buzzer in our bedroom. So that's that. So I've gone to bed and I feel this weight on bed at bottom at bed. This is only last week. Light on, have a look, thinking it's dog. He's fast asleep. Head under duvet again, and just happy. And then I felt something go over the bed, and I've likened it to satin or silk. It was so smooth, and it was just a gentle pressure that went all the way up and over and up the back of the bed. And then there were a noise, and it just went like, ah. Well, I definitely heard it. It was weird. And I stayed where I was. There was no fear, but I instantly started thinking to myself, I'm going to have to go in our room, because if that alarm goes off, she's not going to hear it. Mary wears 2 hearing aids, but not on a night. No sooner had I started thinking it than I heard it, because we'd only been in bed. And even with door shut, I heard it in the spare room. And you ding, dog went mental. She come out because she weren't asleep. She had heard it. She says, Paul, there's somebody in bottom at garden. I know I've done that, but what were the processes there? Was something trying to put some thought in my head? I just don't get it. Anybody, any ideas about that? Because I got dressed, I went outside. Obviously, there's nobody there. It's just weird.
Well, that in itself, like you said the word earlier, it sounds very tricksterish. It's the kind of thing that you hear, isn't it? You know, and not that this is a poltergeist, but you know what I'm saying. On occasion, you know, and ghosts that, you know, people that live with people and that happily coexist in the same house, you know. Yeah, there's people. I always say that to our girls. You know, they talk about, oh, Dad, if when you die, don't come back and haunt us. And you think to yourself, why would you if you loved someone in life? It's not something they talk about all the time, people. Why would you, though? If you loved someone in life, why would you be frightened of them in death? Because surely it's the same. If these people have just passed over and they're the same essence of the human that was, they're not going to harm you. So what would you have to fear? I can never get that. Do you know what I mean? Yeah, it's just we're talking about a lot of weird stuff tonight, people. Yeah, it's just one of those things that you can bat these things around forever and a day, can't you? Yeah. Something else that we wanted to bring up. Now, I'll be interested. Oh, David Hunt, I've seen a shadow figure in my old flat. I didn't ever get a bad feeling of it, but I had sleep paralysis, and it wasn't nice. Yeah, I've never had that. I've never had anything like that. Well, before you get to what you were going to talk about, the sleep paralysis, and it wasn't nice. Don't you find it fascinating, guys, that people who get the old hag syndrome, where they've got this old witch type entity sat on their chest and they can't move? That's not moved on from folklore, and it's not evolved in present day. We're not looking at, I'm going to say somebody's name then, but we're not looking at some people that we would associate with present day who would be frightening. We're still looking at the same thing. So is it sleep paralysis? There'll be somebody far more in tune with what I'm talking about that can help me here. Or is it actually some kind of phenomena? Is it some kind of
psychotic or mental episode that we're having, something sleep paralysis, or are we actually seeing what we perceive we're seeing? We know that in our minds that's what we think's happening, and we're actually paralyzed. But the bit that I find fascinating is that the entity is the same type or very similar in description to everybody who has it. Why? Do you know what I mean? It's that's fascinating.
Yeah, and it almost feels like, I mean, that archetype in and of itself is like the old hag. It's almost like from the medieval and times and beforehand, obviously way before that. It's that, you wouldn't, it's just not a modern day.
And it's not changed.
If it does evolve. Yeah, it's not changed if it does evolve.
Yeah, it's not changed, has it? In all the things that have changed, we talk about the shape of the UFO changing. Do you know what I mean? From the little flying saucer with the glass bubble on top. And now, everything seems to have changed, and we're moving away from the nuts and bolts. Although I'm not saying that they're not still being seen, but everything's changed. But that,
well, you mentioned something to me off air, and obviously, you guys in the chat have all seen this. So I'll be interested in seeing your comments based on Elizondo's little, little mishap that he did.
It came up on the Truth Proof live stream, and I didn't really know loads about it, and I don't now. But this is the guy who's at the forefront of UFO disclosure, as some people in chat will know better than me. He's the guy that's at the congressional hearings, and is the name. He's the man at the moment. Yeah, and yet there's a photograph being put forward, or some images being put forward, and what is it? An irrigation system or something, and it's irrefutable. It's been proved. That's what it is. You can look at the images from Google Earth, and that's exactly what it is. And we know that mistakes can be made, but I don't know.
Well, it's hardly it's not a professional move, is it? Because this is the guy. Don't forget that Steve Merrick caught this guy stole one of Steve Merrick's images of a balloon and tried to pass that off.
Really?
Yeah, he tried to pass that off. With Two of the Stars Academy, they posted a picture of a number. I think it's a number 1. I think it is a balloon, a silver balloon, and it was Steve's photograph. So after you've done something like that, and obviously everyone became aware of that, you would be double cautious, wouldn't you? You'd be super cautious, especially now. I mean, this is like, I know, like, we joke about things and we just, because we do. It's not, look, it is serious, but we can't take everything serious. Bloody hell. But at the same time, this is deadly serious. I mean, if what we believe to be true is true about the whistleblowers and the crimes against some whistleblowers and all the rest of it, he should be really careful about what he's doing. Do you know what I mean? He's just
more than anybody, and it is a shame. I mean, then the other side of it, has he been set up to fail? Was the person who provided the image absolutely foolproof to this guy? There's many.
He claims just recently, I don't know how many days ago, maybe a couple of days ago, he's just released a video saying that he was handed the image just before going live on air, and that he regrets it. He should have done his due diligence on it. And it wasn't his fault, but what else would he say? But at the same time, I think you guys probably hear me bashing these guys quite a lot. I do appreciate that they are in tricky positions, which brings us to Rendlesham, Paul. Because you guys who follow the ufology will be aware that there's been a News Nation interview with Gary Hasseltine about a week ago now.
Yeah, and I don't know whether it's going to get messy, but Rendlesham seems there's a lot of arguments and infighting and people claiming one thing and claiming another, and I'm not a person that wants to get involved in Rendlesham. I know some of the people that were involved in it. Not the military personnel, but such as Brenda Butler and, bless him, Derek Savory, who's now passed away. Met Colonel Holt. I think there's a lot of discrepancies and pluses and minuses either way with this one. I don't know whether it's a road that I'd want to get involved in. Is it you?
No, I don't want to get involved. The reason I bring it up is because I think it's because of the situation with disclosure. Obviously, Rendlesham's touted as our Roswell, and I think for the most part, I'm not far from an expert on Rendlesham. I mean, listening to the interview with Gary Esseltine last night, I watched it. It's a really interesting interview, no matter what you think of any person's research. And I think the idea that Colonel Holt has lied, he would have only lied because he had to. That was his job. I mean, the idea that he's kept some information secret about what happened that night, it's more than his job's worth, potentially more than his life is worth. So I do appreciate that when I am giving these guys a hard time, like people like Elizondo and Grosh and all the rest of them, it's only because, one, it's frustration, but two, there is a serious side to this. I do realize that these guys are either, they're limited to what they can say. Sometimes their lives do depend on it. And at other times, they are actors in this. They are players in this theatre of what we call disclosure. So there's if it was easy as there's so many variables in the mate. We've just talked about cryptids. There's so many variables, hauntings, so many variables. With ufology and disclosure, you've got all the unnatural or natural variables, and then you've got all the theatre and the government and agencies surrounding that. Can you imagine? It's like no wonder. And we just want, an easy answer. There is no easy answer.
But it's difficult. It's like you say, like when you've got people discrediting a story, not discrediting the story, but discrediting someone's truth.
Yes.
And they've stuck to that truth since 1980. And I'm not saying that Gary Hesseltine's wrong, by the way. I think he's put a lot of work into what he's looking into, and he's done a lot of research. So I'm not, by no means am I saying he's wrong, but it's difficult when you've also listened to, over the years, Colonel Holt talk. I've been there when he's been talking. In fact, I've got his email address. He's given me his own big cat report. I might reach out to him and see whether he'd want to come on here for an hour. I'll speak to John Hanson and see what kind of gauge what mood he's in, because I know John talks to him regular. See what we could do. That might be interesting. And
it's one of them, mate. Where ultimately, I don't know whether Gary's is not. I think some people have read it the wrong way. I don't think Gary's saying that Colonel Holt's lied, or Lieutenant Colonel was he at the time? Yeah. He's saying that he lied. He's not lied. He's just not disclosed it. So that's. I'm not giving him an out. I'm just appreciating his position.
Would you? Yeah, I can see where you're coming from, and let's assume, and I agree with you. He's not said that, but let's assume that you're in a position where you've got a good pension. You're not going to be facing some kind of disciplinary, or even worse, for disclosing really sensitive information that you've been told you can't do. Would you say anything? Just to sort of pacify people in chat like this, and I mean myself, including myself in that. Would you say anything? I think you'd have to keep quiet, wouldn't you? Regardless.
Yeah, you would have to. I mean, looking at the state of the world now, clearly people are staying quiet for the jobs in a lot of different circles, not just this genre, in a lot of different areas. They have to say they've got their family comes first, which we can all appreciate. And now and then you will get a genuine case of a person that says, you know what, stuff you. This is what I'm. This is the truth. I don't care what the repercussions are. That's rare, very rare.
There's certain stories that I've been told that I just won't talk about because I've given somebody my word, but they're just mind blowing. Mind blowing. I think of two. Mind blowing, absolutely. And I've probably told Linny and a few people I trust, but they're mind blowing, really. But anyway,
well, we can't say, guys, but something happened in the week in relation to what you and I have been talking about. If we can't say what that is, and we're not going to say what it is. So but something unusual happened to Paul in relation to a conversation we had, and. Oh, that's about all we can say.
We may be able to talk about it in a week or two. We might be able to, and it'll make sense. It'll make sense because I've sort of reached out to a certain individual who we wanted to try and talk to. This is too complicated. It's not fair on listener either. No, if a moment comes up where we can talk about it, I will. It were odd. So that's all I will say. And so where are we going now?
What was I going to say? I was just saying, like, generally, with the whole Rendlesham thing, what we have to remember in all these cases that, it's not that it's so easy to stir the pot, and often we've seen it in our circles, and you've seen it. You'll probably encounter this in some of your investigations, where all they need to do is drop a bot into an online conversation, or a real person that's working on behalf, of one of these agencies. And that's what they probably did. That's what they definitely would have done that at Rendlesham. And we don't know for a fact. In some of my research, particularly with the MyLabs, when I was doing the reptilian stuff, the MyLabs were being debriefed. So they would be interviewed about what they'd experienced, and then they would be debriefed. So they would be reprogrammed so that they didn't remember. Now, a lot of people insist that this happened to the Apollo astronauts.
Okay.
And it's a security measure, and a lot of people insist that it's still happening now with these guys that are flying these craft, these secret spacecraft that we've allegedly got, and that they're dealing with these very serious things, that they're all under some sort of
mind control,
brainwashing for just as a safety precaution. Now, is that the case? It
must be a delicate balance, though. It must be a delicate balance. I'm not saying that you're not right, but can you imagine, I don't know, some kind of chemical component, I assume, and then they're going to put them in charge of high-tech, secret equipment, a secret military tech? I'm not sure myself, I mean, it's same as the military abductions. Yeah, I just don't buy into it. I really don't. But that doesn't mean I'm right or I'm wrong. I just don't buy into it, because I often think to myself, and I know I've said this before, if they've got the tech to infiltrate somebody's home and take them from the home, this is like a man-made, man-orchestrated abduction. Somehow dematerialize and get into somebody's property and get out again. Why aren't they doing it to targets around the world that need removing? I just don't get it.
Well, first of all, I'd say that we don't know that they're not doing that. But I think where this is concerned, where this subject specifically is concerned, I think if you've got key people, let's say key people of a certain bloodline, let's say, just as an example, that are dealing with a certain group of entities, NHI, we'll call them, and that what these secret groups were doing, we'll call it military, because it's the acronym, isn't it? What these military groups were doing is utilizing these abductees as spies, essentially, and they believe that encapsulating an altar in the mind of one of these abductees, they think that the ETs wouldn't be aware of it. Right. So they think that, do you know what I mean? So it's like a spy within a spy. Do you know what I mean? Like
spiders within insiders within insiders kind of thing. It's a frightening concept.
Frightening, terrifying. But we know that they've been trying that. We know that Montauk had elements of that, and we know that back in the times with that guy that worked for the guy with a tash, who we're not going to mention the names, Joseph M. They were doing all that sort of experimentation, weren't they? So
the guy we want on here, and I know that there's going to be uproar in chat from some people because we'll not know if he's telling truth. And I think who I'm going to talk about is Rick Doty.
I know you're going to say
Rick Doty, because do you know, we had him on Truth Proof, and I found him fascinating. And I know there's a lot of people really dislike Rick Doty. I personally don't. If he's lying, he's lying. But as a human being, when I met him, out of all the people I met at the Awakening, he was the most amiable and approachable, let's put it that way. But maybe that's because he wanted to pick my brains, because he was asking me about Hummingbee. So, yeah, you know what I mean? So if you're watching this week,
it's still on the clock.
Well, I said to him, I said, how do I know you're not lying to me now? Do you know what I'm saying? You just don't, but that was his job.
Yeah, and I do. I've met Rick a couple of times, and you do feel for him a little bit, but at the same time, I completely appreciate why he's got that reputation he has, and he's not the only one. Not to the same degree, but as you've said it before, Nick Pope suffers from that a little bit. as well. And you know, there's certain guys in the field that really don't like Nick, but ultimately, again, going back to what we said, that was his job.
Absolutely.
And I think, just going from what I've heard, some of the cases that I've dealt with, there's definitely some of this that we don't want to know about. There is definitely some of this that is terrifying.
Or it'd be frightening if we did know about it.
Yeah.
But you know, they talk about regression, don't they? Abductees, and you want to be regressed. And some people have said, well, maybe there's a reason you're not remembering. Maybe if you remembered, it'd be so frightening that's a good thing. Just before we move on to something else, because you know we've done an hour, but what we were talking about earlier, these shadow type entities that have been seen around the cliff tops and around these areas, or around where you guys are in chat. I don't, you know, there'll be people. I saw some people in chat saying they'd seen these things. What we've also got up there, and what some people will relate to it, we've got the guy who was fishing at Hornsey, during the night, and he saw the figure walking up the beach that just pixelated out of existence when he stood up. And he didn't stand up because he'd seen it. He stood up to stretch his legs. He were crouched down. And this thin figure, he said, if it were human, it the thinnest human he'd ever seen, and it just black. And so when he stood up, it just pixelated. But is that what we're seeing up there? Are these things around us? You talk about aliens being around us. Aliens walk amongst us, but that terrified him. Well, which it would me. It pixelated out of existence. And when I told the story, I got a few more stories from Hornsey, from that beach, of people that had similar experiences. And then we've got the experience of the metal detector on an extremely low tide at Bridlington. I know the guy's name, and he went right down onto bottom part of the beach. He's near metal detecting, and there's no sand, and little stones kept landing around him. He's looking, and he's got a target, and he's scooping sand with his little trowel or whatever. And another one landed. I didn't say it hit him, just landed around. And the substantial, there's shining, there's nothing there. Frightened him. He come off the beach. What is it? Once again, a trickster element, but is that thing that pushed Mrs. Linney in the back, that thing that pushed Pete in the back, pushed Ian, pushed Bob Brown, all us in the back. Is that what we're dealing with? And you guys in chat, I'm aiming it at you as well. Are we experiencing and dealing with something like that has the ability to just become invisible? Hummenby, when the guys went outside, well, the boss, the one they just call the boss, went outside for fresh air, and he met the two, I think it was one of the caravan breakers and somebody from bus breakers. They're stood to catching a bit of fresh air and maybe having a cigarette, I don't know, but there's three huge triangles coming towards them from the sea. Unmistakable. No lights on them, but they're so black and defined, they're unmistakable, and they're discussing this. They're going to be over the top of us soon, and they're very low. And as soon as they got over the top of them, they disappeared. They vanished. Is that the same tech that we're seeing with the pixelating man? Do you know what I mean? And it strikes me that this, whatever it is, thanks, Mary. Thank you. It strikes me that whatever it is, it could have been. Oh yeah, sorry, Chris. You could have a Chris cup of tea. It could have been. It could have been invisible all the way from the coast. It travelled 2.5 miles from the sea. These three triangles, passing roads, passing farms, passing a few properties, and they were visible. Yet they just chose to just blink out of existence when they got over top of these men. How is that? What were the reasons? And I don't know whether that same scenario equates to the somehow disappearing people that seem to vanish in front of your eyes. Who was the American lady that were in the hunting stand? Jan Maccabee, Bruce Maccabee, the famous military photographer, and she said that she saw this thing like Predator. I don't know whether it was moving on the ground below her, is that the same thing? Hey, pointing question, we've got it here. This is how me and Linny met. Not with Predator. I was off to the post office and we'd had a few conversations. He's figured in this chat a lot tonight as Mr. Linford, hasn't he? And we're talking outside Christchurch. Well, he's like me, he's a joiner, and he'd been doing some work in 2007 on a new building, a new rehabilitation centre behind Christchurch, I think, for people with addictions and things. Yeah? Not that, and there's a car park at the side of it with like a probably a 7-foot steel fence going all the way down it, about 3-inch wide with spikes on top. Am I saying something funny, Chris?
No, sorry, mate. Just looking at Rick, what Rick's put on there.
Rick, where's my broom? Yeah, you're right, mate. Yeah. And so Linny told me about being out there, kind of admiring it. Job's nearly done. You'd tell it better than me. You ought to have been in here. And he saw a shape, not the shape of a person, just a shape in daytime, like a heat haze. And it's there. We'll call it an oval. A bit like what Lisa saw, who we interviewed.
Yeah, on the beach.
Said it just slowly made its way down the fence. But a definite shape. What was that? I find that fascinating. And these are the things that don't conform. None of it what we're dealing with today, none of it what you guys have seen and experienced, or what me and Chris are talking about with you guys, conforms to anything. But we all kind of get an idea what a UFO is supposed to do and look like, and the cryptids. But these things, these are outside of that. They don't conform. The fear that drops on a person. It's just fascinating. All the fringe elements of the phenomena.
Yeah, that glimmer man, they call it, don't they? That is really strange, isn't it? It's that video that is it Shoop? How we've referenced it before. You know, the one where the thing jumps down on the branch in
right.
I think it's in the Barbara Shoop, is she called?
Okay.
It's bizarre, and you know, a lot of people have tried saying that that's just foliage, because sometimes with a wrong camera, a poor camera, and a bit of rolling shutter and foliage, we've all seen that it can create strange.
There's a bit of distortion.
Yeah, distortion and morphing and pixelation, strange behaviors, really. But that's something else. That is something cloaked, if we want to say that. It's something else. I don't know what it is, but it's wild, really.
Well, look at what we've recently been able to film up on those cliff tops, only with the use of thermal cameras. And there's been definite spheres there. Lenny got one. I've got one in on the cliff side. Carl Dano came in earlier, just using his thermal for the first time, and he's caught something really interesting. And what I didn't realize, Carl, I think I've told you. You're telling me about it, and I've actually got the psionics on the same area saying I can't see a thing. And we've got your footage accompanying it. So absolutely brilliant.
Bear with me, Paul. I'm just trying to find something because I wanted to show you something. Okay. You've probably seen it.
Well, thank you very much, Sonny Kelly 11. Very kind of you. And
bear with me, guys. I'm just
it's all right. I just want to talk about something else. We might not even get to this, but Dragonborn sent me a message earlier, and something that interests Dragonborn was OBEs, out-of-body experiences, and the association of out-of-body experiences with trauma. And I don't mean I'd never thought about it, but she's right in a way that, you know, we're having these experiences under the anesthetic sometimes, and in traumatic times, and then the astral projection comes about. And I'm probably talking about this, and there'll be people in chat with a lot more knowledge of it, but with meditation. And what's your views on these types of, is it a phenomena? Is it a mental state and we're just tapping into something?
Yeah, sorry, mate. I've just found something unusual that I just wanted to put up, but this is relatively new, I think. And you know, sometimes this stuff comes up on your feed, but I think we should start posting these things because it's you know, current stuff. I've just seen that, Sonny Callie. Thanks very much for that.
Yeah, I've already said it. You're just ignoring me, aren't you?
Yeah, just say it. Right, look at this.
Is that the Pope? No, I'm only joking.
No. Well, it's Jaime Maussan, obviously. Yeah. But this is allegedly, I mean, again, guys, I'm sure someone in the chat's been following this. This fell out of the sky, apparently.
Oh, the sphere.
The sphere, yeah.
Okay.
So, as usual, anything Jaime Maussan does is gets huge backlash because he's not got a great track record. If you remember the mummies.
The mummies, the Peruvian mummies. Anybody know anything about them? Weren't they exposed, Chris, as being dolls made of bones?
Yeah, Steve Mayer and Barry Fitzgerald debunked it all. Yeah, they went there.
Right.
Yeah, and so on. They handled them. I don't think it went down very well with this guy, but yeah, his track record's not brilliant. However, you know, I do personally know people that have seen these things in the sky.
Right.
So what they are and whether that's legitimate, whether it's I mean, I think if it was something from the military or an aerospace group, I can't see why they would want to be putting all that sort of fancy detail on it. Almost like looks like a fancy bowling ball, doesn't it?
No, absolutely, yeah. And if we went back to, I think it was 1954, in North Yorkshire, we've got the Silfo saucer.
That's right, yeah.
That fell from the sky allegedly. I know Dr. David Clark, you know, said it was a man-made hoax, and you know, fair crack to him, there probably was. It was 18 inch in circumference. It was made of copper, and they said it was they're quick to point out, these people, that it's a hoax. I'm not saying it's not, but they miss out the elements that detract it from being a hoax potentially, because they said it was made out of a water cylinder and being crafted and beaten, and it looked really looked like just a copper flying saucer. So let's assume that's the case. I'm not having a go at David Clark here. I think he's a great researcher and he's good at what he does. But what they failed to say was it was tested by the British Non-Ferrous Metals Association and found to be of an exceptionally high purity of copper, which is unusual. Not the type of copper you would get in a cylinder or copper pipes. And I know I'm off on a tangent here with Silfo saucer, but when they got it open, they got into this thing. There were some books that had got hundreds and hundreds of symbols on them, but they said, which could have been forged and man-made. I don't beat out with some kind of tool and what have you, but each page of the book, which was wafer thin, consisted of 3 or 4 other pages that were somehow laminated together. So this wafer thin copper sheet, the page of the book, was actually 3 or 4 sheets. Don't quote me on that, people. It might have been 2, but something tells me.
So they compressed it together.
Yeah, and then that then became one sheet. However, that one sheet consisted of 3 or 4 even thinner sheets to make the one.
A bit like the metamaterials, like a crude metamaterial.
Fascinating, the Silfo saucer for me. And I'm not saying it's not a hoax, but anybody wanting to look up it, I think it was November. I'm going to give you 2 years here, people. It was either November 54 or November 57. It'd be easy to find. Silfo Moor in Scarborough. And there was somebody walking on Silfo Moor. I think it was, 3 men. One of them was a solicitor, because I contacted a solicitor's where he used to work. And we're going back to 1950s. And there's an old guy there who remembered him. But I was trying to I wanted to know what happened to the Silfo saucer. I could never get to it. You know, and allegedly the story was revived and it made the newspapers because Dr. David Clark were talking in a university, I think. Once again, don't quote me. And a guy came up to him, one of the curators, with a box that said flying saucer pieces. And when he opened the box, there was pieces of the alleged Silfo saucer, but it didn't say the Silfo saucer. It just said flying saucer pieces, but they equated it to being that. And it could have been. Do you know what I mean? Everything I've said there is just about accurate, but there's a lot more to the story. And obviously, guys, I'm not prepared to give you that information because I don't have it in front of me to sort of give you any more detail. But a fascinating one if you've never heard of it. Yeah,
it is. It's there's a few old cases like that. Actually, I'm trying to think. I did an edit on one a few years ago. I'm trying to think of. It wasn't that one, but it was a similar case to that.
Yeah. Well, you know, if we go back to 1963, I think it was. June 1963, and the boat, the Imperialist, and I love telling this story because the boat's still in Bridlington Harbour now, but it was based at Flamborough back then. It was a fishing cobble. It's painted orange, white, and green, orange and white, and it's sat there in Bridlington Harbour, this fishing cobble. But in 1960s, 3 fishermen were under Crab Rocks, where we go and do the observations. We literally go to Crab Rocks, although it's got a stand and it's got a name to it now, New Roll up around that area, but it's within 100 yards of Crab Rocks, and they're there hauling crab pots and lobster pots, or the same thing, crabs or lobsters. And they duck because they see the shadow of something in the water, obviously illuminated. And when they look up in daytime, there's a ball above their heads. You've seen that sphere, what you've just shown there. We'll get to the size of it in a minute. And they just see it, and then it's gone. It's literally just gone in seconds. That's literally 200 yards from the RAF base, RAF Bempton, which was a radar station. Is there a connection to that? Would they have detected it? Would their radar actually have been able to detect something as low down? Probably not. It was below the cliffs, and the cliffs are 300 foot there, and they said it was just feet above their heads. And the old fishermen, excuse me, when I found story, I went on to Harbour and asked a few people that I knew if they knew these fishermen. And one of them used to come up in a mobility scooter, just reliving old times with fishermen who were working there then. So I got talking to him. It was him. And I said, how big was it? And, he wouldn't have spoke to me. There's no way this guy had have spoke to me if it weren't for Tom Quinn. And, you're able to talk to some of these people just by virtue of people that are respected within the community. So Tom said, just tell Paul what he wants to know what you saw back in 1960. So I says, how big was it? He went, fate ball. I went, what? Fate ball. It's Flamborough terminology. A football, a fate ball. It was as big as a football. And what were interesting, when they got back to Flamborough, remember, there's no radios, there's no phones. It's 1963. There's 3 fishermen. They got to Flamborough. There's men in suits waiting for them to talk to them. How does that work? It's crazy, isn't it?
Yeah, it does make you wonder. Are these our recon? Have they been our recon stuff from back in the day? Back then, you wouldn't have thought, would you?
No, but I've thought about. Sorry, Chris, go on.
No, I'm just saying. But then again, if they had the craft back in the 40s, it's possible that they back engineered this thing, and you know.
I have thought about it, Chris, and I think now we know that it sounds incredible. Something as big as a football hovering above somebody's head, spherical. It were a creamy white colour, just slight glow to it. And I have thought to myself, well, maybe it was some military tech they were testing. They're near a former RAF base, and that would prompt the military response or the official response if they were observing this thing and thought, bloody hell, there's some blokes there. Let's put it over their heads and see what. I don't know. So maybe, but then, like you've just said, it makes you think we're going back 61 years. And if they'd got something that were just a circle, no means of propulsion, no, it weren't a drone, it were totally silent, or not a drone as we're familiar with a drone with the little props.
Yeah.
That's 61 years ago. And how's it propelling itself?
It's clearly using anti-gravity tech, if you want, whatever name you want to use for that. So I don't know. It begs the question. I mean, they like now to broadcast the fact that they can sense and pick anything up undersea or in the air now, don't they? Yeah. Anywhere with the latest technology that they've got, radar and satellite and underwater sonar.
Is this what here from James Bartley? And DMTR.
Sonny Keller, hear from James Bartley, and don't mention the reptilians. You're above someone, John. I love your tenacity for finding out what's going on. Oh, cheers from California. No worries, mate. Thanks again for the donation.
Yeah, absolutely. And I don't know if anybody's listened to James and his podcast, but he gets some really interesting people on. And I'm trying to think. Oh, come on, help me, Chris. What's the name of his podcast?
Cosmic Switchboard.
Cosmic Switchboard, guys. If you want to listen to some good information, find Cosmic Switchboard and James Bartley, because he's a fascinating guy. Yeah,
we should get him back on. We'll get him back on at some point. Australia, sometimes I know it's the time difference is a pain sometimes, but we'll figure it out.
Yeah.
Steve Collin, I had an OBE when I had glandular fever as a teenager. Totally real, no doubt. Was looking down on myself.
That's fascinating, isn't it?
Have you had one?
No, I haven't had one of those, and I think it might have been last year or year before. I'm a terrible sleeper, and I don't want to say I've had everything, people, but just to say I've had this, because I haven't had that. But only a time in my life it's ever happened, and I've tried to do it many times since, and it's never happened. I woke up in the night, in the morning, early hours of morning, and I felt like a perfect clock. I'm just so comfortable. It was brilliant. And the next thing I know, my body felt like it was doing that, and I'm sure I just left my body. It was just brilliant. They call it, and then that's why I ended up talking to Dragonborn today about astral projection. And is that what it was? I don't know. I've not been able to do it since, but I definitely. It was just amazing, to be honest with you. And have people in chat had that? Or are you just all rolling your eyes and thinking, what a loan?
No, I think there's definitely people in the chat that will have had that. I think it's a bit more common than we think it is. And just going back, just recently, I also watched Hal Puthoff's latest interview. So I'm sure you guys know who Hal Puthoff is. Yeah. Involved in a lot of the Wilson Skinwalker stuff, but also involved in a lot of the 0 point energy and consciousness research and remote viewing, especially the remote viewing project Stargate. So he's just done a really interesting interview with Joe Rogan.
Okay.
Well, I always watch Hal Puthoff and think, you know so much more than
you're actually letting on.
Than you're saying. You know, I mean, this guy's one of the main guys, a bit like that Kit Green. He's got had a finger in a lot of pies. Nice, seems like a really nice guy, very well respected. And obviously, look, he can't say what he's involved in. But I often think, and it's similar to the Hunman Bay, and it's similar to some of these cases where you know that just your everyday, not every day, but your soldiers there, you know, that's aging now. He was there, and they've been present in these ops. How do you, after you retire from these things, how do you just go back to
how do you switch off from it? Yeah, and
shopping in the supermarket and, you know, just living. It must be strange. It must be. I mean, for regular, I've had mates in the military that found it very difficult to get back into civilian life. So, what's that like? You know, it must be very hard.
Lynn is taking us back to that photograph that's been shown as a fake. Paul, that circle irrigation thing you mentioned, they have them all over the States. Yeah. Some very close to Skinwalker Ranch. He should have known better. Yeah, I tend to agree with you, Ian. I really do.
Yep.
Right, I had an OBE the night before my son had surgery for cancer. I was terrified. Wow. Thanks for sharing that with us, Sue, because that you had it and not your son. Obviously, that's what you've just said, but that just shows that you were in a heightened state of emotion, and that's triggered it. And I'm probably saying things that people already know, but you know, we've said many times that a lot of unexplained phenomena and strange things happen when you're in this altered state. Some be in deep in sorrow after loved ones passed. But things tend to happen, and do you think it's the state of our minds that's allowing this to happen? As in, I don't mean it's imaginary, but we've just putting out that vibe that we wouldn't normally put out in everyday life. We've just in such a deep emotional state, which has obviously triggered something for you there.
Yeah, Daryl Cobby is saying that Hal Puthoff was inducted into the Encyclopedia of American Loons. Puthoff was fooled by you. I don't think that's true at all, personally. Not from what I've read, and certainly not from what some of the people that I've spoken to about that guy.
Well, you know,
not saying I'm right, but you know, when you're dealing with these types of people that are involved with these clandestine organizations, to think that we're going to get an accurate view of them, you know, we're deluding ourselves. I'd like to think I know these guys, and we do. I mean, look, I'd like to think I know you, but I don't. You know, I know friends and everything. But do you know what I mean? When you think
there's another layer to everything, isn't there? You're
everybody. So what? These guys they're in another league. They live in some of these guys live in you know, they've got a theatre version of themselves, and then just got what they go and do. So, you know,
well, just talking about Hal Puthoff, and you know a lot more about him than I do, but I used to have conversations with Howard Hughes, and he used to think he was so credible, to be honest with you.
Yeah, I think he is credible, and I think it's purely because the bulk of his work, if you like, was scientific, and you know, and a lot of that, and it can be proven that a lot of that remote viewing research, and Martin Abbas will know this better than anybody here because he's researched and done a lot of remote viewing. Yeah, Martin will know that all about Hal Puthoff, and that the fact that they tried to he didn't want to believe, because of his scientific background. He didn't want to believe. He fought against remote viewing. Heavily, he did not. He was getting the results, and he was fighting with himself, saying this cannot be.
That's a bit like Einik with the Project Blue Book, isn't it? I mean, he was the skeptic. He'd come to disprove the UFO hypothesis and came away a converted UFO believer, you know, and the evidence was hard for him to disprove, weren't it? And same there, I suppose.
Yeah,
just before we move on, Chris. Sorry, go on.
No, I was just going to say, going back to what I said, we can only look at the limited evidence that we've got of these guys, and what limited evidence there is about Hal Puthoff. There's certainly a very credible side to his scientific work, but I know obviously he's appeared in a lot of photographs with a lot of questionable figures, so he's clearly another clandestine side to him in his research and his work, which of course is top secret. So it is what it is.
Just before we move on, I'm not sure what guest, if we've got one next week. We were hoping to be speaking to Mick Park this week, but something cropped up and Mick couldn't make it, which is unfortunate, because I'd love hearing what Mick's got to share about his knowledge and his thoughts on UFOs Unexplained as a whole. So we will get Mick on. If you don't know who Mick is, Mick's the guy who did the interview for Truth Proof with Robbie Williams and myself. A great guy, Mick. But on 27th, we've booked Matt Emch. And if you've not heard Matt tell his story, his experience of the Youngstown Dogman, then you know, pencil it in, because it will be interesting. He's a great guy, as well as sharing his other sightings. And I'd like to, anybody got any, not suggestions for guests, but suggestions for topics that you might want us to talk about? I've noticed, I'll let Chris have a talk in a moment, I've noticed that Josh Turner from Paranormal Roundtable, another great site if you want to get onto it, another great live stream. But he talks about the cryptid phenomena. He talks about lots of things. He's a broad knowledge, as Josh, but he's been talking about vampires, something I've got no knowledge of other than scary films. So I'm fascinated. So I'll see if I can reach out to Josh and get him on to share a few accounts with us. Would anybody like that? Let us know.
Yeah, the good thing about Josh is that he can get you from vampires into, you know, any other phenomena really quick, because I think he thinks there's a connection to a lot of this stuff as well. But I think I really like Josh. I think he's one of them guys. How he retains that information in his head, he can talk.
And he does.
Hours,
he's good.
Hours.
A bit like Steve Stockton, same. Right, crop circles. Did you see it says crop circles would be a good subject? Yeah,
well, that's right. I forgot about that.
I think that's good. Crop circles. I'm just making a note of that. Never talk about them. I'm only joking. Crop circles. We'll do that, and we'll have a look into that. Thank you. And where are we now?
Yeah, I think get someone, because a lot of these things, we know a little bits of fringe stuff, aren't we? But we're not qualified. You know, I mean, look, we're not bloody qualified anyway. I'm certainly not. But
who's qualified to talk about a subject that nobody really knows anything about?
Well, no, you know what I mean. I mean, like crop circles in particular. You need to, you know, that's why these people.
You've got to get a guy who's invested, or a man or a woman who's invested a lot of their research into the crop circle phenomena. Absolutely, I agree.
Yeah. Alan Johnson, Jumpy 3401. I had a motorcycle accident on my way to work one morning. Luckily, I wasn't badly hurt. I did, however, watch the accident from the side of the road as it happened. Can't explain it, but it happened. That's crazy, isn't it?
That's fascinating, isn't it? Alan, it really is. Can you imagine? And I can't, but, you know, I'm not saying I want to either. I don't want to have a crash just to imagine it, but it's fascinating. It's another perspective, isn't it? That it's almost like you've jumped back in time to watch it. I don't know how that equates, but it's fascinating. But there again, you hear of people in situations, life and death situations, where they say everything slowed down. Do you know what I mean? Everything
time
slow down. This time distortion. So I don't know what you experienced there.
Liam saying Freddie Silver is great on crop circles. Yeah, I'm aware of Freddie Silver.
Have you made a note of that, Freddie
Silver?
I've just wrote it down. Never.
Yes, Mike the Server Welshman's saying yes, Paul. Something about vampires would be great. Yeah,
it would, and it's not something I'm not. Please don't think that I'm imagining that there's something like Count Dracula going around sticking fangs into your neck, but we talk about vampires in other respects. We talk about people who are absolutely emotionally draining, energy type vampires, if you like. You just know after you've had a conversation with them, you're tired. I don't know. And is there something that taps into the human energy and kind of exhausts them?
Well, look, the obvious one for the vampires is the blood element of this, and we know that that's a key factor in a lot of this phenomena. So going, and that in fact, you could argue. I mean, that's interesting, isn't it? Actually, but that is actually the one constant in a lot of this stuff.
Yeah,
going back to Nathaniel's stuff on ritualistic magic and all the sacrificial stuff, and now the modern day stuff. That what are you finding in the fields, and what is there a lack of after they've dealt with them?
Yeah, well, I'm not trying to plug a book here, but my book, The Night
People. You never do, so you may as well plug it.
Well, point in question though. That's why I went through them books. Then I honestly believed, and I've written it in there, that whatever was happening, I think it was to do with blood. I really do. There were times when my body felt like a perfect clock when they were there, and it felt like. I've written it that my blood were being taken out of my body and put back. It was so weird. And Night People. So available on truthproof.uk or as a Kindle download. I may as well get that bit in. And there's 3 Truthproof books. Not that one. There's 3. 1, 2, 3, and 4. All available. And if you're going to buy them from overseas, please use the link that is the eBay link, because I can put them through global shipping. And then I've just
got a memo book.
Chris's memo, and then we've got the Wolfman's DVD, which is on Amazon Prime, or order it from truthproof.uk, and it'll get posted out the very next day, unless it's the weekend. Got that in because I never normally. So
I think it's key, mate. I think just it needs plugging, because we already know that people appreciate the stuff, and it's actually, you know what, it's really surprising how many people watch you and watch me, and they're not even aware of some of the stuff that we've done. In fact, they found Last Transmission and said, I didn't even know Paul was on here.
Originally you were doing Last Transmission. Let's face it, you created the name and you were doing Last Transmission. I think I don't know, you just put it to me, do you want to join me with this? And because it had just gone a bit stagnant, hadn't it? You just life had taken over.
It takes effort. It takes work. I mean, a lot of guys, we're mourning here, but you know what I mean. We're not mourning. We're mourning, but we're not mourning. Anyway, enough of that.
Yeah, enough of that. So let's have a look. Opinions on recreation and baby coming back from birth with birthmarks. Recreation or recreation. Oh, recreation.
Reincarnation.
Yeah, but it says recreation, doesn't it? Does it? There's no N in it. Anyway, and can we remember what happened? Yeah, there's evidence, and there's children and people all over the world that can describe having other lives, and it's impossible, really, isn't it? But it's not impossible, because they're actually saying that these things have happened. Children that are giving you experiences and telling you about places that they couldn't possibly know anything about. So it is fascinating.
Yeah, there's a couple of cases out there. Obviously, the famous pilot one and the young Indian boy as well.
That's the one I was thinking of, the Indian boy. Yeah.
They are, for me, I just don't know how you debunk something like that. I just think it's just so it's incredible, really. But do you know what? Something else really interesting, and often we bring Mary Rodwell up on this podcast just because of her research. She's another one that specializes in a certain kind of research, isn't she? But when she was telling me about some of those children that are speaking these weird languages, and she's putting these kids on a Skype call, and they're talking to each other. They don't know each other. They're talking to each other in another language, an unknown language. What they say it's an ET language, right? And then you look at what's just coming out in this telepathy tapes thing.
Yeah, I can't say telepathy.
Oh yeah, go on, have a go. Go on.
I've just said it.
Oh, right, there you go. Yeah, the telepathy tapes, and you start thinking, is there some connection? And of course, we know that a lot of these children with certain abilities or conditions, if you want to call it that, just different ways of thinking, and just the brains are wired a different way. And I think to some degree, I think we could argue that's a lot of it. We're all wired a different way, aren't we?
Absolutely.
It's really, really interesting research, and you can't help but think that somebody behind the scenes clearly knows about this.
Well, it's great. This lady, I can't remember her name, who's working with these children or a little bit, they think a little bit different to other children, and they're communicating with the parents via thought.
Yeah.
And and it's fascinating, and she's proved this with these telepathy tapes. It's fascinating, really. And that's another thing. That'd be brilliant to get this lady on. We can say this, it's up to me, it's up to you to reach out to these people, because we can talk about it, but we can't talk about it in depth and go through the cases that she may be able to tell us.
And from experience, we can't talk about it like that. But what we can say is that how many of us are actually doing that or have done that without being aware that we've done that? Because it's clearly doable. We know now there's research projects that knew about this for a long time ago. So it does make you think that we are potentially at times in altered states. We are doing this. So we're projecting this information out.
Not just information. You can project feelings, can't you? You can walk into a bar and if there's hostility.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah.
You automatically know. You're not just reading people and looking at body language. You just get a feel for a hostile atmosphere, or
when you've come in late from pub, or
that happens. It used to do, not so much now.
Yeah, if you don't you?
You know what you're going to come home to. But then we've got the animal side of it as well. The dogs that actually know when the owner's coming home, and not something as predictable as they're always coming home at 7 o'clock. So dog's just got its body clocks just wired up to waiting at door because he knows it's coming home. They actually know at different times. My gran used to have a Dalmatian, and she used to swear that the dog always knew when we'd set off. She said, and I knew you'd be 10, 15 minutes because the dog's sort of getting excited and waiting for you. And it really did. Because I was the only one that took it out. Nobody else took it for a walk. And it wanted to go out, but we didn't always go at the predictable times because my dad worked all sorts of silly shifts. And so, you could be going at 10 o'clock at night just to check things were okay. But she said that dog knew. She knew when we were coming. And that's not just one example. I'm sure there's thousands of examples out there. But yeah.
I think if we knew, if they were more truthful about what they know, a lot of the questions that we think we'll never get the answers to, I think the answers are there, aren't they? That just somebody knows how all this works, or has a very good idea at least how it works.
Can I just throw a random one out? A note to do with telepathy and what we've talked about. Does anybody know what the result of those monoliths that were seen? Was it last year? These sort of metallic, these chrome, stainless steel looking monoliths that were appearing all over the world. What was it about? Was it some kind of something for an up and coming film? Because we kept seeing them, and it almost as though there were a mystery surrounding them. But I'm so sure somebody in chat must. No, I never found out what the reasons for these things were. Did you?
No, and it's so difficult with these things because I suppose back in the day they didn't have the resources they've got now to cover these things up or to muddy the water. Now it's instant. They've got pre-programmed bots. So let's say there was something legitimate in it, whatever it might be. Before you know it, there's so much disinformation being thrown into it via the internet, via social media and all the rest of it, news networks.
You don't know truth from a lie kind of thing.
Yeah, and they're unwittingly publishing the stuff like we all are, thinking that we know what we don't know what we know or what we don't know. But yeah, that's how tricky it is. But yeah, I don't know what the monolith thing was all about. I think a lot of people talked about it being symbolic of the age and of what's coming, but I don't know.
But did we ever find out who'd put them there? And I'm sure there's plenty of people in chat who'll know exactly what I'm talking about. And they were a column, probably 14 to 16 inch wide, that were about 10 foot tall, and it was just metallic, highly polished, that were just in random places around the world, and people were just putting them up on internet. And I just came into my head the other day. I thought, well, we never heard anything about them. I thought it was going to be for some blockbuster movie that were going to come out, and it was just some kind of prequel to it, you know, build up to this thing. But nothing ever happened, and it seems to have petered out. Like the drones, that's dying a natural death. You know, all the drone sightings that that everybody was reporting on these drones. And then I think it was the FBI that came out and said that there's no national security threat. And
yeah, they said that, and the general thinking is now they've kind of admitted this, but you even wonder if an admission is a form of disinformation, which it usually is. You know, well, you know, the thinking is now that they were putting our drones up to confuse the public about the genuine stuff that we're being seen and is being seen, and is, you know, is always being seen. It just so happens that was a flap of these sightings genuine, what they class as genuine NHI craft. So they knew, like you've said before, they seem to know these craft are coming. They're aware of not just the craft, but the beings. How they're aware of this, we don't know.
Well, it's certainly jump into the case that I'm really familiar with, Humminby. The military knew. They knew that were going to happen, and that weren't ours. Do you know what I mean? You know, I've had first-hand information face to face with the witnesses who were there on the night and saw it, which we're going to hear about, by the way, on the 17th of this month at the Awakening. And you're going to, I'm going to talk about Humminby, and Linny's going to do an incredible talk. I know he will, because I know what it was involved in what he's talking about. Anybody got any views on? Oh, go on, let's have a look. For hitting 10,000 gets £10 from me.
Thanks very much.
Very kind of you.
Really appreciate that. Very kind of you.
And Alan Johnson, thank you. They all appreciated, but as I say, for me, and I say it on Truth Proof, we don't need nothing. Just brilliant to have you guys' support. But I really appreciate it. But it's great to have you guys' support. What's people's views on really high-profile people? What do you think they might know about unexplained phenomena? Do you think they've had their own experiences and it's just leveled them like it leveled everybody else, everyday people? I personally think it will have done. But do you think they've still got they've got the avid interest, the sort of deep-rooted interest in the subject, because some of them may have been touched by the phenomena? And I'm thinking Lord Mountbatten, because a picture came up recently of the craft that is Bricklayer back in 1955 sketched and said that he saw. And I could see, no, it was it 1955. It came after his death, but it was seen in 55. That was it. But I saw similarities. Batten died in 79, and it came out after that. And I saw similarities to the Leslie Buttlecraft, who you've interviewed with me, who lives in Bridlington. But what do people think? Did you think people like the royal family have got more knowledge than what we've got of the UFO subject because of their connection to high-ranking military personnel? Do you think they will be told things? Or do you think things like this deeply guarded secret would be kept from them as well? Anybody? Any views? Rick Bennett. Thank you, Rick. Have a few pints, lads. Yeah, sounds like a plan. Thanks, Rick.
Yeah, cheers, Rick. Appreciate that, mate. Thank you. Yeah, well, going back to the personalities that you just mentioned, mate. Isn't it funny that, well, with your surname,
Sinclair,
and obviously your attachments to Rosalind and stuff like that, the bloodline, and I think someone mentioned it, a few people mentioned it in the comments earlier about how important that is. That definitely is a factor. I've come across that. It's one of the constants. Another one of the constants in this. The blood, however you want to look at that. But I think, like you say, it's not that. It's also like musicians are a big one, aren't they? They always. How many of these famous musicians seem to encounter these UFOs or have some sort of strange paranormal experience?
And I wonder, you know, they talk about people having strange paranormal experiences, being touched by the magic of the phenomena, and becoming ever so creative and talented. And I don't mean something's doing that work for them, because it's probably we're doing it ourselves, but I wonder how much of it is enhanced and brought about by the other part of the human consciousness that's opened up after having an experience. So there's loads of instances where people become really creative writers, brilliant at painting, can play instruments. It's a fascinating concept. And there may be people out there that have had experiences during childhood that have never connected that, who've gone on to be famous musicians, famous writers. I don't know, it's there are examples of people, within the public eye who've got an avid interest in unexplained phenomena.
Oh, I think John Lennon for a start, David Bowie, another member of Beatles, actually, I think, weren't there?
Well, I don't know.
I think it might have been Ringo Starr.
Oh, yeah, right, okay. And we had on Truth Proof, we had Joe Wood on. She's got an avid interest in UFOs. Robbie Williams. Robbie's so interested in unexplained phenomena. It's unbelievable. And for those that don't know, you'll never find anybody more down to earth. He's absolutely not the persona that you see, the showman that you see. He's absolutely real, genuine kind of fella. But anyway, go on.
Yeah, well, I think going back to, I was just about, you were bringing up before the personalities, there was something else, something came up there in the chat, and I just saw it. Really interesting. I've lost it now. It was the, you were talking about the monoliths. Well, obviously, I was trying to think of the film, and I thought it was bloody.
Was there a film called Monolith?
It's 2001: A Space Odyssey.
Okay.
That's where the original monolith. That's the scene, isn't it?
Right.
At the end, I think, or at the beginning, or at the end, one or the other. I've not seen that for a very, very long time. And Lorraine's certainly not going to sit through that. I can tell you now. She is absolutely, and my daughter, anti-sci-fi. You wouldn't believe it.
Well, I don't think I'd sit through it either, to be honest with you. Yeah, I've got the attention span of a fly. I always say, same with at conferences, the speakers are great, but I find it hard to sit and listen to them simply because I just don't. I just want to talk to people. I prefer that face-to-face communication. But we've got the tallest monolith in Great Britain, 6 miles from where I live, the Rudston monolith. A huge slab of millstone or gritstone, should I say. And that's a place of absolute intrigue. And lots of stories come from the Rudston monolith and around Rudston. Where the stone came from originally, I suppose that's going to be debated till ends of time. I suppose archaeologists are going to say that it arrived on a glacial ice flow, which it probably did. The closest rock composition is in Cornelian Bay, which would probably be, as the crow flies, 15 to 17 miles away. As early man, thousands of years ago, dragged it. Who can say? I find that hard to believe. There's another story from a saga in Copenhagen that says it's the burial stone of a famous Viking, because allegedly a Viking called Rud died on the Wolds, and that's his burial stone. But would they really have brought a 45-ton stone across the ocean? That's hard to believe as well, isn't it? Do you know what I mean? It's difficult. Whatever, Chris, the significance of this stone is great. It's stood there. It's stood there since before the Romans. It's not been destroyed. It's people, as I've said many times, people say, I think I'm not sure of the name of the church. Is it St. Mary's? But it's stood in the grounds of the church. But it's not. The church is stood in the grounds of the monolith. And we've got stories of time travel attached to it. We've got strange sightings around it. Peter Masters, the electronics expert who we deal with, and we might have to call on Peter when we're doing the documentary. I know me and Les are going to be... using's not the word, Peter, if you're listening to this, but I will want your services because the guy's absolutely switched on. But we took equipment at Rudston Monolith with a laptop and filmed it, and it's kicking out 1.6 gigahertz. What's the magic number? Is it 1.6?
Yeah, 1.6. Yeah.
And we've got it on film. But the next time we go, nothing. It's weird. We got it at Bempton as well. And this is with equipment that as akin, very similar to what they're using on the Skinwalker Ranch to detect this frequency, this signal. And how do I know it's the equipment that they're using there? Because Peter, believe me, he says it is. Only the thing that we're using, we're testing something that's just a little bit upgraded from it, which makes a change for us because, everything I'm doing is on a shoestring.
Question, Lauren, do you want to put another question up for us, please?
Yep.
So what we got? Deb Shaw's asking, can we get Joe Hickey Hall? And yeah, we definitely can. Yeah,
that'd be a great idea. We've had her a couple of times on Truth Proof, and loads of people. You're spot on, Deb. Asked for Joe because she talks brilliant. She can talk all day about her chosen subject, the Fae. So, and it's something that really interests me. And so,
Dragonborn, Silver Fox died at.
I know what this is, so read it, Chris.
At the scene of his motorcycle accident and watched himself until he was brought back by a GP. Ah, right. Okay.
Yeah, she's told me this, and it's fascinating. And that's Dragonborn's husband. And I hope you didn't mind me saying that. And well, obviously you've given it away anyway, just about. And so she would know for a fact. And it's fascinating, the story itself. But I won't go into that. But yeah, fascinating.
But no, just to say, it's weird that someone can intervene. So when people say about fate and someone intervened, and then you'd say, well, was it fate that he intervened? Do you know what I mean? It's just I don't know, just another conundrum, I suppose. Lee Roscoe. I wonder if one bloodline has more experience than others in the paranormal. I mean, I think this is relevant. I mean, I think it's relevant to your lineage, Paul, as an example, like.
Yeah, I wonder. I'll get to that, but I wonder if Lee's meaning. Do you mean a generational? Do you mean a family that's maybe dabbled in certain things, and it's knowledge that's being garnered over centuries? And is that what you mean, Lee? Because I went on Whitley Strieber's Dreamland, which is another great podcast years ago, and out of the blue, Whitley Strieber said to me, "You must do your ancestry, because something's telling me that you've got connections to Rosslyn Chapel." And I didn't know. And when we did the family tree, Andy Tong did the family tree, actually, incidentally, who used to be a guitarist for Alice Cooper. A great guy, Andy. He's passed away now, but really good friend. Anyway, Andy did the family tree and discovered that I was the 11th generational the 11th generational grandparent is William Sinclair. I think it was the 11th. And I've got the paperwork and stuff that he printed off for me, which is fascinating. I don't know how Whitley come out with that or why he came out with it. And that's what led me to Rosslyn a couple of years ago. But interesting.
Yeah, I think we said we will at some point put it on the list of things to delve and dig into. That could be a deep one, that one. No, just people in general, Lee.
People in general, Lee. Okay, thank you.
Well, we were talking before about reincarnation. If we deem that, I certainly believe it's real, and just listening to the near-death experiences, you think, well, what happens to someone straight after that? And you hear these people that have died for an hour sometimes, and that have experienced and had all the, seen the life back over and watched it replay, and
fascinating, isn't it? And then you hear people, Chris, that say they saw the life pass in front of their eyes.
Yeah,
and everything in the life almost in seconds or minutes. That's fascinating. And then you've heard the people who say, well, when you're dead, because I passed away on the operating table, and all there was blackness. And I instantly thought, well, there was something then. If you were actually out of it and you actually knew that there was only blackness, then you were conscious of something.
Yeah.
And that's not necessarily the end of it. It could be that there's something to follow. I don't know. Maybe that's me just being ever hopeful, because sooner or later we're all going to go to the same place.
Well, a lot of remote viewers talk about that blackness as well.
Right.
Periods of blackness before arriving somewhere or something.
Okay.
But what I was going to say is that if we talk about our reincarnation, one of the things that there's people call it a new age movement now, but what if there are alien souls, as an example, and you were reincarnated back here? Because this is a very common one. I don't know if you've ever come across this, but I came across it a lot. That they would say, well, in a previous life, I was, I don't know, I had a lifetime on Mars, as an example. Or, yeah. And I was of a Pleiadian race or whatever. Now, how you justify that and how you tell that story, I don't know. Is it if it's possible for us? Is it possible?
I don't know. Maybe it could be that we're just. I don't mean special. I don't. But we're that little bit different from the rest of the animal kingdom, the rest of the population. That the aliens, these unknown others, find us fascinating. Maybe they want to live their clinical, bland existence, which is almost mechanical, through us. You know, almost looking through our eyes, because we're something that they've never experienced. We could be the perfect species to give that lift in intelligence, so that they can sort of live life through us. If they've not got souls, I don't know. Babbling here, me, but because I really don't know.
Well, next question, Lorraine, please. What we got? Mike, the Saber Welshman, Paul Chris, Dracula did actually exist. He was a 15th century prince from Romania. Yeah,
from Romania.
Yeah, there's definitely history there, and of course, Vlad the Impaler, and then obviously the famous connection to Prince Charles and the Windsors, or Saxe-Coburg, whatever.
Really, I didn't know any of that. No, I didn't know any of that.
Yeah, Prince Charles is very proud of that fact, that he's related to Vlad the Impaler. Yeah.
Do you know that's I'd heard about this Sasquatch encounter at Balmoral, on the Balmoral estate, and I don't know enough about it, Steve, to go into any detail, but talk about it in any sort of clarity. But I had heard about it.
Yeah, I didn't know that.
Yeah.
Can you get Whitley back? He's interesting.
We could try. I've got an interesting picture of Whitley Strieber. He came to the Awakening. Chris will know when, probably 3 or 4 years ago.
2022.
Yeah, and we had some pictures taken. And whilst he were doing his talk, he were telling people about an alleged implant that he had in his earlobe, and that moved down his ear. I'm not saying it's true or untrue, but that's what he was talking about. So where am I going with this? Took a picture. I don't know if I showed it you, Chris.
Yeah, you did. Yeah.
David Hind, I think, took a picture of me and Whitley stood together, and his earlobe it just looks like there's a diamond protruding from it. It's don't know how it's done it. I mean, can you remember the picture?
Yeah, I remember it. Yeah.
And the reason why I said it, can we get him back? It's interesting. If I find the picture and fire it at Whitley, he might owe us a favour. He might come on. We could ask.
Yeah, we can always ask. Alien 99. Is this a new one? Someone new?
Maybe.
Welcome if you're new. Do you think over time our brains channel the ability to see paranormal entities? I ask because of the ability for young children. Yeah.
It's a great question and a great way of putting it as well, isn't it? Let's face it, because how many children and parents say that my child's got an imaginary friend, and I'm not saying that that's happening, but we go upstairs and we can hear him or her talking to somebody and having a conversation. They don't hear it's not a two-way conversation. It is for the child and their imaginary friend. But if we talk about mind speak, how do we know that something like that's not happening? Because when the door opens, they're not talking then. And they say, I've just been talking to whoever who clearly doesn't exist. It's fascinating, great way.
Yeah, it's you hear that a lot, don't you? And it's I think it's David Icke talks about that a lot with perception, and it happens to us in every aspect of our lives. I suppose we get such stuff thrown at us, don't we, that are trying to program us to think a certain way and believe certain things, and before you know it, you're all shut down.
I didn't know any of this, Dragonborn.
Gordonston School, where King Charles I don't know. I've not
No,
heard
I
that.
didn't know, but that'd be something to look into, I think. And just before we do close this down, crop circles, Freddie Silver, I'd not forgot. And so we'll kind of, even if we can't find somebody to come on about crop circles, we'll do a bit of homework. And if any of you guys want to talk about it as well, get in touch and we'll see what we can do with that.
Oh, cheers, Steve.
Yeah, thank you. And thank you for everybody who's been on with questions and just enjoyed being in your company tonight, guys. Really appreciate it. And if you haven't pressed the like and subscribe, consider doing it. Helps us out a little bit. And brilliant. 2 hours.
I'll tell you what, mate. We've got a few minutes left, and I've just remembered that you had a reporting, didn't you, this week?
Oh, that's going to take some telling. Let me just have a look.
All
yeah,
right.
we'll do it. We'll do it. Yeah, I've made some notes here. Well, this is one of many reports I've been writing up. This one probably came in a month ago, but I've only just got to writing it up, and I've just called it Time Traveler or Ghost. I've changed the names and the police officers. So we're going back to 2012. So I've called the witness Dan, and he spoke about an incident from 2012, and it was the summer of 1991. I'm glancing down at notes here as I do it. And serving police officer based at Millgarth Street Station in Leeds. So some of you guys will know these locations. Certainly Andy will. The incident took place on the last evening of a week of nights. His colleague, who I'm going to call Dave, not real name, was sat with Dan in a police car. It was a Ford Fiesta back then, and they were on Lady Lane. So this is Leeds. I'm not really familiar with Leeds, guys, although it's not that far away from me, but people will know. They turned left into Vicar Lane and were parked 10 metres from the junction of Vicar Lane. Anyone reading or listening to this would be familiar with Leeds, will know the locations I've mentioned, as I've just said. The time was 5:30 a.m. You asked for this, Chris. We're going to run over now. A lovely sunny evening. At 5:30 a.m. It was lovely, sunny and bright morning. Very still, no wind. Two officers parked up to complete their pocketbooks before they returned to the station for dismissal at 6 a.m. Right, warm morning, so the vehicle driver windows were wound down, engine turned off, so passenger window down as well, and Dan was seated in the passenger seat. Dave was driving. Right, let's have a look. As Dan was writing up his notes in his pocketbook, he heard footsteps walking along the pavement at the side of him, approaching. You see, I've been told this, and I've just wrote it up in my kind of way. They were approaching from behind, and behind the police car to the left. Dan explained at the time that time in the morning, you could usually hear the sewers under the roads. That's how quiet it was. He looked up instinctively to say good morning, and to the pedestrian, as there was not another soul in sight, and it was the polite thing to do. As he looked around, he saw a man who he thought would be about 55 years old, although he said in hindsight he was probably 65. He said, it's hard to tell. The man was wearing a mid-green tweed three-piece suit and brogue shoes, which appeared to be very well cared for. So he clocked this guy and got a good description of him, didn't he? He was also wearing a trilby hat and what appeared to be a pocket watch. Dan cannot be certain if he saw it on a chain or not. That's interesting. Under his right arm, he's carrying a newspaper. He immediately thought to himself, would local shops be open at that time in the morning? It's interesting as well. He thinks he commented to Dave something like, he must be warm in that suit. The officers watched him as he went down Lady Lane and stopped at the entrance of an old warehouse on the left-hand side of the road. From where they were parked, they could see that the door of the warehouse jutted out, a bit of brickwork jutting out slightly. It's kind of brick porch. Let's have a look. Let's have a look. Oh, scene from they sent me an image, but I can't do that because I ain't got an image to show you, but you've got the idea. As they watched him, he took out a bunch of keys, walked into the doorway, and appeared to enter the building. No unusual there. They just assumed he was the caretaker or something. After 5 minutes, Dave started the car, and they took a slow drive back down towards Millgarth Street Police Station. Let's do a little bit more. Why did you ask me this, Chris?
I meant the other one, but never mind.
No, as Dave, we've got to do it now. As Dave drove down, as Dave drove at walking pace down Lady Lane, they reached the doorway where they had seen the man enter. Dan just automatically looked to his left. To his total shock and amazement, the doorway where they had seen him enter was in fact blocked up. Can't remember whether it were bricked up or temporarily covered in builder's boarding, plyboard or chipboard, but it were blocked up, completely inaccessible. Dave immediately stopped the car and they were both totally shocked and amazed and spit out a few choice words. They contacted the police station to request the key holder information. The station came back to them and said that the key holders had confirmed that nobody would be in the building at that time of day, but it was a functioning warehouse, but they did confirm that it was totally inaccessible from that blocked up doorway where they had seen the man enter. It's fascinating, isn't it? They reported what they had seen to the duty sergeant who came out and met them. The three officers then waited for the key holder to arrive, which ran into an hour of overtime. They searched the building, obviously from other side, they got into it. The man was nowhere to be found. Now, all three of them had to make a pocketbook entry of the events. And so then he says, and so somewhere deep within West Yorkshire Police Archives, those will no doubt still exist. This is the only supernatural thing that has ever happened to me, Paul. He's sure what they saw. They are both sure what they saw, that the person had solid footsteps, he was real, and he entered through that doorway. Even now, over 30 years later, he has no explanation for what they saw. Just, I don't know, guys. What do you think? They kept their eyes on him. They said he went into that doorway. I find it fascinating. I love reports like that.
It just goes to show you, we talked about it, didn't we, the other week, about how many of us have seen a ghost and not even realise what we're looking at.
Well, yeah, but he was solid. The footsteps,
yeah,
you know what I mean? It's just fascinating.
Yeah, great story. The other one will have to wait, but anyway.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that's it for tonight, guys. So thank you, everybody, for being here and listening to Paul and I and supporting the channel, liking and subscribing, and great that we got over 10k subscribers, and we'll keep doing it, Paul.
Yeah, we'll just keep pushing forward, and thank you very much, guys. Don't forget, Thursday, myself and Les on Truth Proof, so join us there. You're all welcome. And from me anyway, thank you, Lorraine. Thank you, Chris. Thanks, everyone in chat. Thanks for the donations. Really appreciated. And good night.
Yep. Night, guys. See you later.